I'm 79 years old. I wake up every morning now with a quiet awareness that the day in front of me is smaller than the days behind me. Not less important. Just fewer. And there's something I've been carrying for a long time that I don't see the point in holding anymore. I'm not telling this because I want forgiveness. Most of the people who could forgive me are gone. I'm telling it because when you get to this age, you realize the truth doesn't need an audience. It just needs air. These days are slow. Not peaceful, slow. There's a difference. I sit in the same chair by the window most afternoons. The cushion remembers my shape better than I remember some faces. Outside, life keeps moving with an energy I don't have anymore. People hurry past like they're late for something important. I used to be one of them. I didn't think much about endings when I was younger. I thought life was long, stretchy, forgiving. I thought if something didn't happen today, it would happen later. That belief followed me for decades. It felt reasonable at the time. It felt harmless. I was wrong in a very quiet way. When I was in my 20s, I wasn't reckless. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't chasing trouble. I was doing what people said you were supposed to do. I worked. I showed up. I tried to be dependable. I thought that was the same thing as being present. I took a job that paid well enough and asked for most of my attention. It wasn't my dream, but it was solid. I told myself dreams were flexible. Bills weren't. I said yes to overtime. Yes to responsibility. Yes to being the one who stayed late because someone had to. I remember the routines more than the achievements. Coffee too early. A commute I could do without thinking. Conversations that stayed on the surface because there wasn't time for more. I told myself I'd slow down once things were stable. I told myself stability was just around the corner. It always was. I got married in my early 30s. She was patient in a way I didn't fully understand back then. She listened when I talked about work, even though she had already heard the same story 3 times. She learned how to eat dinner alone without making it obvious. That should have bothered me more than it did. We used to sit on the couch at night, both tired, the television filling the space where conversation could have been. I thought proximity was enough. I thought love could survive on shared walls and shared last names. I told myself we'd talk more later. We didn't. When our children were young, time moved faster than I noticed. I missed things without meaning to. School events I arrived late to. Questions I answered quickly instead of carefully. I was there, technically. But my mind was usually somewhere else, still finishing the day. I told myself they wouldn't remember the small absences. Children remember more than you think. They just don't always talk about it. Nothing terrible happened all at once. That's the part people don't warn you about. There was no single mistake I could point to. No moment where alarms went off. Life just kept asking for a little more, and I kept giving it, assuming I had plenty left. The cost showed up slowly. A birthday dinner rescheduled. A conversation shortened because I was tired. A weekend promised and quietly replaced by work. Each choice felt reasonable. Each one came with an explanation that made sense at the time. That's how it works. Regret doesn't usually look dangerous when it's happening. It looks responsible. My marriage didn't end in shouting or betrayal. It faded. One day I realized I didn't know what she was thinking anymore. We lived parallel lives under the same roof, careful not to inconvenience each other with unmet needs. When she finally got sick, I told myself I'd make up for lost time. I took days off. I sat by her bed. I held her hand. I said things I should have said years earlier. She listened. She smiled. But there was a distance I couldn't cross. You can't compress a lifetime of absence into a few good weeks. She died quietly, early in the morning, while I was getting coffee down the hall. I missed that moment too. I've replayed that detail more times than I can count. Not because it was dramatic. Because it was fitting. After that, the house felt bigger than it ever had. Rooms don't forgive you for ignoring them. They remember. My children grew up and moved on, as they should have. They call. Sometimes. They're polite. Kind. Busy. I hear my own voice and theirs when they say they'll visit soon. I know what that word can mean. Work ended without ceremony. One day I was useful. The next day I was replaceable. There was a small gathering. A plaque. A handshake. I went home early that afternoon and sat in silence, waiting to feel proud. I felt empty instead. That was the turning point, though I didn't recognize it right away. Not retirement. Not the funeral. It was the accumulation of quiet moments when no one needed me and I didn't know who I was without being needed. Illness came later. It always does. Nothing dramatic. Just reminders. Slower steps. Stiffer mornings. Doctors who talk to you differently once they realize you're closer to the end than the beginning. That's when clarity arrived. Not all at once. But steadily. I started seeing my life as a whole instead of a series of days. And from that distance, patterns are impossible to ignore. I wasn't unlucky. I wasn't cheated. I wasn't a victim of circumstance. I delayed my life. I assumed there would be time to fix things. Time to explain. Time to show up better once I wasn't so tired, so busy, so needed somewhere else. I treated time like a resource that renewed itself. It doesn't. There are things now that cannot be fixed. Conversations that will never happen. Apologies that have no place to land. Versions of myself that only existed briefly and were never fully used. People say memories are enough. They're not. Memories are echoes. They remind you of what was there, not what you still have. Loneliness in old age isn't always about being alone. It's about realizing how many chances you had to be closer to people, and how casually you let them pass. I don't hate my younger self. He was trying. He was tired. He thought responsibility was love. I understand him more now than I did then. That's part of the cruelty of timing. If I'm speaking to you now, it's not to warn you dramatically. I don't know your life. I don't know your obligations. I only know how easy it is to trade presence for productivity and call it maturity. I thought being remembered would happen naturally. I thought if I did enough, people would feel it. But being remembered requires being felt, not just relied upon. If there's anything I wish I had understood earlier, it's that delay is a decision. Not a neutral one. Choosing later is still choosing. And sometimes it's choosing absence. I'm not asking you to abandon your life or make promises you can't keep. I'm just saying notice where you keep telling yourself soon. Pay attention to who always gets the leftovers of your energy. I used to think love was durable. That it could wait. It can't. It needs evidence. Repeatedly. These days, I don't have much left to give. I offer small kindnesses. I listen more than I speak. I sit with my regrets without trying to argue with them. Acceptance isn't peace, but it's quieter than resistance. If this meant something to you, that's enough. If it made you think of someone, don't rush. Just notice that feeling. I'm not here to change your life. I already lived mine. There isn't much time left for me. I feel that clearly now. And oddly, that clarity is gentle. It strips away excuses. It leaves only what mattered and what didn't. I spent a long time believing I had more time than I did. That's the lesson I learned too late.